You can criticize Russia for many, many reasons. You can condemn the actions of Russia, quite rightly, for many reasons. What you can't do is claim to be an exemplar of democracy if whenever you get the opportunity to be tyrannical, you take it. Let's see what Justin Trudeau had to say about Chinese state authoritarianism in 2014.
He was asked which country he most admired and referred to China.
There's a level of admiration I actually have for China.
Even then, before Justin Trudeau became a sort of figure of loathing as a result of the trucker actions, and I'm sure for other things that I've not been following, he literally, while he's still in his boy band phase, is openly declaring affection for Chinese state authoritarianism.
Comedian Russell Brand, left-wing comedian Russell Brand, taking on Justin Trudeau. He's the latest celebrity. You know, wasn't that long ago that the world media just wanted to love Justin Trudeau, and that's not the case anymore. Hi, I'm Brian Lilley, political columnist with the Toronto Sun, joined by my friends and colleagues, Laurie Goldstein, Lauren Gunter, gents. Trudeau losing a bit of his shine, and it's not just people like Piers Morgan on Fox News criticizing him anymore. This is Russell Brand. It's Bill Maher. It's British, journalists and TV stars. What's going on with Trudeau and his international appeal? He just came back from a trip to Europe. Doesn't seem to have helped him much.
Russell Brand's point is very good, which is that you can't go around the world and talk about the importance of democracy when you've done undemocratic things at home.
Because their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime and say, we need to go green as fast as we need to start, investing in solar.
If only we had a dictatorship. Don't worry, Justin. Future you has got that.
I thought that was a devastating critique, and it has a lot of resilience with people now, not just in Canada, but elsewhere. And of course, one of the things that hamstrings him so terribly is that thing he did when he was the Liberal leader years ago, asked a tough question about what country do you admire most? And he says China's basic dictatorship. And to me, that was always significant. His father was a huge fan of Castro. When Castro died, Justin Trudeau put out a tribute to him that was mocked around the world because it talked about whether
I was on the steps of the Notre Dame Basilica in Montreal covering Pierre Trudeau's funeral when Fidel Castro showed up to be a pallbearer.
Yeah. And, so I think that's in the Trudeau family. There's this admiration for dictators because you can do things, as he said, you can do things quickly. But you can't have had that kind of background and experience and then pose as a defender of democracy when it comes to Putin's invasion of Ukraine.
But if we're going to be honest with each other, democracy hasn't exactly been at its best these past few years. Even as we're fighting Putin's invasion, we need to recommit ourselves to the work of strengthening our democracies.
Lauren, is it significant that it's not just coming from the right, especially the American right, that this is more widespread now, the criticism of Trudeau?
Yeah, it's much more important that it's coming from moderates and liberals themselves rather than the right. You'd expect the right, us and everybody else on the right to criticize Trudeau. But when someone who's a known liberal comes out and says, oh, this is awful, like Bill Maher. Bill Maher is, I think Bill Maher is an iconoclast. So it's not too surprising. Russell Brand is very clearly a liberal-minded person, but he's also got some serious principles on liberal democracy, and he's quite right. Here you have Justin Trudeau going around in Europe saying, "Oh yes, we're all in favor of democracy. We're not going to do anything about it in Ukraine. We're going to scold those of you who have more resources than we do if you're not sending enough. But our job, and this was reinforced by Melanie Joly, the foreign affairs minister, the other day, where she said, we're not a military power. We convene things and we make sure that other countries are doing the right stuff.
And Canada will always lead conversations to find creative solutions. But at this point, based on the information we have, we have a red line that we can't cross.
I mean, so we're essentially the world's scold. And
It makes it sound like we just schedule meetings.
Exactly. Yeah, we're the scheduling secretary in the important person's office. So it's awful the way this government in particular. This has got to be the worst government I have seen in my entire career of being in politics first and then covering politics. And I think the rest of the world is coming around to see that there is no substance here. I mean, when Trudeau was in London and the British press asked him a bunch of questions after he'd been in an audience with Queen Elizabeth, one of the one overriding theme that came out of it was the man answers no questions. They said they were asking Canadian reporters who were traveling with the Prime Minister, is he always like this? Does he always evade answering questions? But he really thinks that what he's saying is substantial. And that's, I think, the biggest single problem. This man is a horrible lightweight. And now the rest of the world is starting to see that he is just a pretty face. There is nothing to him. He is not a new kind of politician.
Okay, and so he goes to Europe, and look, there are good reasons for our leader to be there, and I support that. But there was also the photo op angle, which he overplayed. And you remember the question, is this just a photo op? And Chrystia Freeland got her nose out of joint, and people, chastised the reporter. And how dare you ask that? They put out a video as soon as he came back. It was 77 seconds long. Justin Trudeau was featured in 67 seconds of the 77-second video. It was a campaign-style ad. Even when he goes to Europe to talk about Ukraine and a war, very serious issues, it's all about him, all about the photo op. One day, 7 different photo op events, just photo ops. This is a guy who can't take anything seriously beyond saying, all right, let's put the camera on me and let's tell my story.
Well, look at what Russell Brand nailed him on. That was his speech in Europe about slippage. There's been democratic slippage around the world. And he argues, Trudeau says that emboldened Putin to invade Ukraine. And so what Russell Brand says is, well, A, that makes absolutely no sense. But B, if we're going to talk about democratic slippage, what about your invocation of the Emergencies Act in your own country that was totally unnecessary? And so, Brand's a comedian, and he has a good sense of comic and ironic sense. And to me, that was a devastating critique. You say that you're a Democrat. You say that slippage of democracy around the world caused Putin to invade.
Apathy, cynicism, misinformation and disinformation, declining voter turnout, mistrust in our institutions. It's our job to rebuild that trust, to give people reasons to have faith in our institutions, to get involved in civic life. We can't let fear, anxiety, and envy overcome the hope, the earnest optimism that is necessary for democracies to thrive.
You're part of the slippage. You don't respect democracy. Pretty hard argument, pretty devastating argument.
All right, last word to Lauren on this.
Yeah, I think that the bloom has come off the rose, and as you said, this is a long-standing family tradition. I wanted to point out when you're talking about Trudeau Sr., Pierre Trudeau, that there were 2 world leaders who showed up for his funeral, despite the fact that the Liberal establishment in Canada thinks he was this great saint of our democratic fervor. 2 people showed up, Fidel Castro and Jimmy Carter. That was it. Nobody else who was really important bothered to show up. And I think when Justin Trudeau slips away from the scene, no one who's really important is going to show up for that either.
And there, on that note, we'll leave it. Gentlemen, thanks so much. I want the audience to weigh in now. Leave your comments down below. Is Russell Brand right? Is this part of an ongoing problem for Trudeau? Drop a comment below, share this on social media, and of course, subscribe to our channel.